Hello and a very warm welcome to Luke Blues Talking, your Stranraer FC vlogcast. I think I can get away with it. I keep coming up with this, trying to figure a new word out for it. George, Frank and Brian Martin on tonight. Guys, we'll be looking back at the Larne friendly, a narrow 1-0 defeat. Looking ahead to visits to Irvine and Halford and having a little bit of chat about what we saw on Saturday, the players we saw. We've obviously got a new signing since then in Evan Dunn. So, Brian, coming to you first. Saturday, 1-0 defeat. As we said to the manager afterwards, to Tiff, the score was the least of anybody's concern on Saturday, as long as it wasn't a ridiculous score.
It was great to be back, Laurence, wasn't it? Back with the whole commentary and back to see the football live. I quite enjoyed the game, as you say, Laurence, the score was, it's nothing, it's, we don't really look at the score, it's the players, their fitness and, it's just to get the players back up to speed for the close season. And yeah, I thought other players we watched and some of the trialists done fine, and I'm still of the opinion we're going to a very solid defensive unit this season.
Yep. George, your thoughts on Saturday as well. Obviously, you were back to filming, editing, listening to Brian and me talking nonsense. And I guess I'll pick up on what Ryan Kyle said. I'm not going to apologise to the linesmen because they never apologise to us when they get things wrong. But probably my judgment that Larne's goal was offside. Looking at it, it was probably just onside. But what did you make of Saturday's game, George?
Yeah, I thought there wasn't really much to it. It was your typical kind of beginning of pre-season clash. We didn't create an awful lot, but as Brian says, it's more about getting minutes in the legs, getting players up to speed, finding that cohesion that we'll be looking for in pre-season with all these new players coming in. I think what we've seen from the new players, there's enough there to be positive about, and hopefully there'll be more to see in the coming weeks.
Well, we saw most of the new players, Brian, with Jordan Stewart, Scott Ruff, both at the back. We had BJ Cole. They all started the game, as did Lewis Hunter. And then, later on in the game, we saw Ronan Hughes. So I guess the only new player that was there on Saturday we didn't see was the keeper, Ewan Henderson. I'm guessing the manager was quite happy that he knows what Ewan brings to the party. But, Brian, a wee bit of surprise in the trialist goalkeeper on Saturday.
Yeah, but the first thing I noticed, Laurence, when I went to the park, I said, Mr. Lane is back, which is great to see. And hopefully, I think things go smoothly with his signing, and he signs back on for us for another season. It'd be good to have a good goalkeeper who we know, like what we did last season, and it'd be good to get him on board. I think once all the paperwork's sorted out.
And Brian, Jordan Stewart and Scott Ruff at the back, did they look competent additions to you based on what we saw on Saturday?
Yeah, the boy Ruff looked extremely capable. You'd have thought him and Meatballs have been playing together all their life. They look very
Yeah.
comfortable. And I loved it. The private battles, especially big Lewis Reed had with the boy number 9 for Larne. They were having a right go at each other throughout the first half. Obviously, the boy for Larne took off second half, but as I said in the commentary, Laurence, these two centre halves won't take any prisoners this season, I'm quite sure.
No, I mean, you can't tell what's going to happen the season ahead from a friendly against Larne because although they're going for Europa League qualification, a friendly's a friendly. They're not wanting to have any players struggling with injury after that. George, what did you make of the new guys that we saw on Saturday?
I like the look of Scott Ruff too. I think he seems to have slotted right in there beside Meatball, Rough and Reedy as we're calling them, at centre back. Yeah, I think it's looking good. It's very hard to kind of make an assessment based on what we
Yeah.
saw though on Saturday. As I say, there wasn't we didn't have an awful lot going forward, obviously, because we only had one striker available. And but yeah, on the whole, I liked Scott, Lewis Hunter, again a player that we've known for a couple of years and that we know can do a job at this level. I think he looked solid. So yeah, more to come, I'm sure.
Well, on the subject of Lewis Hunter, we caught up with him after the game on Saturday, so let's hear what the former Spartans man had to say to us. Lewis, welcome to Stranraer Football Club.
Thanks for that.
Very, very early pre-season match against Larne. It probably wasn't as friendly at some stages at the early part of the game as we thought it might be. So from that point of view, was that a useful workout?
Yeah, it was good just to get the fitness levels up. First game, a good test for us all. Got a wee bit physical at times, but I think overall it was a good performance from everyone, and take that into next week and going forward into the season.
And I know it's really not about results at this stage, but you're up against opposition there that are preparing for the Europa League qualifier, so at least it's a test, I guess.
Yeah, it's competitive. They're a good side. I don't know much about them before they came here, so it was good to kind of see what level they're at, and got some good players and that have played at a good level. So yeah, like I said, a good test for us all, and hopefully we can take the performance into the League Cup and when the league starts in 6 weeks or so.
So we come up against you last season. Could you just ask how the move to Stranraer came about?
Yeah, so after Spartans, Chris got in touch, Tiff got in touch with me just to see what my plans were, and I was away on holiday at the time, so I didn't really know what I was doing. And over the holidays, kind of think about it, and he made kind of liked what he was planning on doing for this season and the way we wanted to play and how he's seen the team going. So I thought that'd be a good place for me to come and play this season.
Is that how, as a player, is that typically how it works? It's not just somebody saying such and such a club wants you kind of hear about what their plans are and how they're
I think it's a wee bit of both. Yeah, I think it's who you know, and if you've got the experience, or you came up against another last season and the seasons before. So I think it's just kind of a bit of everything within that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
I think we got the gist that it probably suits you geography-wise, is that?
Yeah, logistically, yeah, it's a bit easier for me, just training-wise as well. It's only 20 minutes from where I stay, so in that sense it was a no-brainer for me in that way. But and the buses to games was a big help. Usually I've been even
Spartans
and Arran before, it's been a lot of travelling, so I think that's a big help in that sense.
It's the way of things for a sort of League 2 player, isn't it?
Yeah, I know.
The place where it's Elgin or Stranraer.
I know, exactly, yeah. But I always thought last season Stranraer put up a good fight. They were a good team, hard to play against, so hopefully that continues.
Seriously, does that might help our squad? So we've got a fairly new squad this season, a lot of players coming in from different levels. It's arguably going to help the fact that you're so familiar with League 2 already. What to expect?
Yeah, I think it's just getting everyone to gel together. The boys that have come in from like juniors or here on trial at the moment, they've all done pretty well so far. So it's just kind of keeping that going and gelling with each other and getting to know what's good for everyone else, and hopefully it keeps going.
And today's game in particular, obviously there were a lot of newer guys trying to gel together, but how strange is it to play in a game where you're bringing on 6 or 7 trialists as well, who had no experience of playing?
I know, I think I came off at that moment, but I think the boys that came on did really well. I think it's just like I said, it's from there, just getting used to each other and how each other plays, if you like the ball into feet and behind, or just kind of getting used to how we want to play. But I think we did that well today. I think from what we've worked on the last week or so, I think we executed that, and I think so. Keep working that in training.
And I take it from now, it's just a steady progression. You've got Irvine Meadow, Halford, Crusaders. It's just sort of slightly up in the preparation every week.
Like you said, results come with it as we keep going, but it's just getting the legs going and getting used to game fitness, match fitness. So I think once that happens, we'll get to put the results together and get some goals.
Lewis, thank you very much.
No problem. Thanks, guys.
Lewis Hunter there, and not forgetting another. There were other new guys who featured on Saturday. BJ Cole was on from the start. He fitted in nicely. I actually liked the look of Jordan Stewart. I was laughing, Brian, at the manager afterwards, giving Jordan a ticking off for getting a cheap booking. But I like the fact that like Ruff, like Reedy, these guys aren't going to shy away from a challenge, Brian.
Correct, Laurence. He reminded me so much of Dylan Forrest, Jordan Stewart. They play maybe a wee bit more mobile than Dylan, but I thought some nice touches in the middle of the park. I know he's coming from the west of Scotland, but it looks as though he's going to fit in fine. He wasn't out of place against Larne. I'm quite sure he'll be absolutely fine against the likes of Dumbarton and Clyde, etc.
Brian BJ Cole, likewise, I think he was involved in the thick of it in the first half when Jordan got his booking. There seemed to be a bit of a set to going on at that area of the park, and no quarter was being given, as we said.
Again, Laurence, I mean, he has got SPFL experience, so I mean, he knows what to expect. I suppose Ronan Hughes has as well. I mean, he's played in the SPFL as well, so I mean, he knows what to expect. And I mean, BJ Cole's absolutely fine. He wandered up the park 2 or 3 times, just like probably Ekrapont did last season. And I'm quite sure he's going to be an attacking left-sided, defender.
Aye, George Ronan Hughes, Brian mentioned there. I like to look at him. He had to come on 28 minutes in, so it looked as if Kirk McKnight had hurt himself. But I thought Hughes seemed to have almost a kind of roving commission. He was all over the park the second half, and I liked the look of him.
It's funny, Brian mentioned Dylan Forrest. Ronan Hughes gives me a bit of a kind of Dylan Forrest feel to him, and similar kind of story in that he's making that step up this season, but has the kind of quality to do so, I think. The other thing I kind of noticed on Saturday was we're still short of a lot of our attacking talent, I would say, the likes of James Dolans and Danny McManus. I know Tiff mentioned in his post-match that's a player that's going to get bums off seats and that kind of thing. So 2 strikers still out. Hopefully more strikers to come. So as we said going in, very much a work in progress, but there's signs there that we can be positive about the season, I think.
Yeah.
So Brian, we had 7 trialists on Saturday. We've already mentioned one of them, the goalkeeper, and I guess let's focus on Josh Lane for a little bit. We're all delighted to see him on Saturday. So I guess me of old. You're the optimist. I can be the pessimist. I guess to me, I'm just wanting to make sure we get that over the line, get Josh signed up, because if we get him signed up, he'll be a right good signing for us to get pinned down.
Yes, plus he knows a couple of the defenders, Laurence. He knows Docherty for the back end of last season. He knows Meatballs for the back end of last season. He knows Ekrapont. So he knows these players. He knows their strengths and capabilities. I mean, and he's just fitting in there, like a glove, I think. And I hope to see him back, because he's a very, very good young goalkeeper.
And George, 6 trialists in addition to Josh. We saw them all. It's probably important just to note that Evan Dunn, who we signed on Wednesday, getting lost this week, was not one of the trialists that we saw on Saturday. So any of those particularly impress you, George?
I think there were a few that had nice touches. I need to be really careful not to mention names, because I know some of the names.
You know the names.
Number 7. I thought he had some nice touches. Trying to think who the other one was. Number 12, I thought looked fairly solid. And it just remains to be seen whether we'll have room to bring anyone in or look to, especially with the addition of Evan Dunn, who was on trial elsewhere on Saturday.
Yeah, Brian, for me, 7 and 12 and possibly 19. What do you make of the trialists?
Yeah, I think 12 come on in place with Sean Docherty.
Yeah.
He looked a wee bit, I thought, uncomfortable at right back. But when he switched him to the centre-half position, I thought he looked much more comfortable. But I don't know whether he's a centre-half or what his position. Definitely a defender, but I thought he looked more comfortable, in the back 4, in the middle of the 2, So I thought he looked the best.
Maybe just depends if Tiff has room for another defender now with Evan Dunn signing on Wednesday. I mean that Brian brings the score up to 18, possibly 19 if we're counting Josh Lane in there. What else are we looking for? Is it as simple as forward?
Robbie Foster looks to his way for long term. Darren might not be back till the start of the league campaign. So I mean, he's got to get a forward in somewhere. By hook or by crook, he's got to sign somebody. To get. I mean, it's only Ryan up front. So he's got a very, very hard task.
Yeah.
If he's going to be playing up there himself. But I suppose Martian Russell, can sit, just behind Ryan. But he definitely needs another striker.
George, one thing that Lewis Hunter was talking about was how he had been impressed by Stranraer when he came up against us last season. It's kind of like a topic I touched on last week. I think he was impressed by us purely because we actually were beating Spartans last season. It's kind of like you look at other teams from the point of view of how you did against them. So I tend to think, I look very different at East Fife and Edinburgh City from what I do when I'm thinking about Clyde and Forfar, for example.
Yeah, and it's a bit like when we're talking about Uzi C and we say, he's never really impressed, but that's because we tended to have Edinburgh City in our back pocket last season. So I think Lewis seems to have settled in well, and it's whilst it's exciting to see all these new players that we don't know coming in, it's also quite reassuring to see someone who we do know that knows the level and can hopefully, hit the ground running, so to speak.
Brian, it's quite good to see a decent crowd at Stair Park on Saturday. I know probably 100 of those were from across the water, but what a friendly like the Larne one actually does, considering it's a friendly, there's actually a wee bit of an atmosphere there.
Yeah, I thought it was great, Laurence. I think they shot 600, I think, which was really fantastic for a friend. I mean, you're talking 2 or 3 seasons on. I'm quite sure you'll be looking at maybe 300, 400. So again, a couple of hundred up what we usually get at this time of the year. And I thought it was a really healthy crowd. It was quite a nice day. I mean, it did help. The weather was okay. That probably brought a few bodies out, but I thought it was a good, healthy crowd.
And a change in routine for you. I believe you were not doing your pre-match research in the Pavilion Bar on Saturday.
No, it was too busy, Laurence. There was a queue when we went in, and I says, "Oh, I'm not waiting for that." By the time I get served, it'll be 1 o'clock. So I just come on running and went for a coffee or try to get a coffee right enough. But no, it was the Pavilion Bar was absolutely mobbed.
Yeah, George, that's got to be a real encouragement for the club the last couple of seasons, the Pavilion Bar.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's busy if Brian can't get served at the bar.
Surely he's got a reserved seat. He must have a reserved seat.
He should do. Just talking to the guys from the committee earlier in the week, we actually had record sales in both the Pavilion Bar and the Fitba Bar over the weekend, and they've been doing really well. So credit to Colin Heron and his team at the Fitba Bar. But fantastic stuff, and it's one of these. Can we play you every pre-season from a committee standpoint?
I guess that's one of the things about playing against opposition like Larne. They're going to treat it the way we would if we were going over there. They're going to treat it as a big day out in the summer. From a Larne fan's point of view, they can get their backside on the boat without having to drive, probably, unless they don't live in Larne. They get a bus into Stranraer. So it's sort of free rein for a pint or two on the boat coming across, and also a pint or two in Stranraer, which all helps us in terms of our coffers.
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully the same to come in a week and a half's time with Crusaders. So we'll see. Yeah,
absolutely. And while you're on the subject of Crusaders, Brian, Elliot Dunlop heading across the water. We'll see him in a couple of weeks' time.
Quite a strange in that, Laurence. I mean, he's went across there and Alec King has traded places with him and went to Airdrie. I think Dunlop looks a lot better player than Alec King. The last time I seen Alec King, so I'd be very, very, very surprised at that. I mean, I don't know, Airdrie. I mean, I don't know. Maybe McCabe doesn't fancy the wee boy, but I think that's quite a strange one to me.
Might be that, George, because Elliot went back to Airdrie at the end of his loan round about Christmas and the New Year, and then we were able to get him back. And to be honest, given where Airdrie were in their table, you would have thought they would have kept him at that point.
I would have thought so, and it's I don't know whether it's just maybe a kind of difference in style and stature and that kind of thing, because obviously, Elliot's diminutive, bit more technical and tidy on the ball, and maybe it's just two different managers looking for two different things.
Maybe it's the stature thing, Brian. People, 1 or 2 people have been questioning Craig Ross going to Ayrshire because he's not a big, sort of hulking, huge central defender, but I don't see that. Brian, still there?
No, I'm still here, Lawrence. He's froze there. No, I seen Craigie Ross. I seen Craigie Ross's interview with the interview with Airdrie, and the guy mentioned his height, and I mean, Craig had put him right. He says, I win my fair share of the balls in the air. So, I mean, I think a lot of people mention Craig's height, but we know, we watched him for the last 4 seasons, in fact, and he doesn't
Yeah.
miss much in the air, does he? I mean, he's good in the air.
Yeah, even at the other end of the park, Brian. Think of the goals he's got in the air.
Yeah.
East Kilbride, Edinburgh City. There's lots more I could dredge up from my memory.
Yeah, he's good at coming forward for corners and popping the odd in the back of the net. He was always good at that as well.
George, we're off to Irvine and Hullford. West of Scotland challenge. A lot of the guys we've brought in will be familiar one way or another with either one of these clubs. Irvine Meadow, West of Scotland, First Division, Hullford, West of Scotland, Premier. We've obviously been at Irvine about, 2 or 3 years ago. We've been at Hullford every year the last 2 or 3 years. These matches will probably also be a physical challenge the way Larne in the first half was.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's and that's again a good thing about pre-season is that you can put the players through their paces in this sense, and it will be physical. It's going to be we don't know whether it's going to be a hot day as well, and they're going to have a long afternoon ahead of them. In some sense, whatever way you look at it, I think Irvine Meadow and Hurlford both bring something different. We've seen from Hurlford in the last couple of seasons when we've played them that they're no mugs, and it's going to be a test for us.
Yeah, Halford's always a decent night out on a Tuesday night, Brian, as long as it doesn't bucket with rain. Good to see what Darren Henderson's up to, a former Blue.
Well, I'm usually on holiday this time of the season, Laurence. I've never been to Irvine, I've been to Irvine, but I've never been to Irvine Meadow, and I've never been to Halford, so I'm looking forward to the two of them. I'm going to get to the two of them because my holiday's a wee bit later this year, so I'm looking forward to seeing both. And as George says, I mean, both Ayrshire juniors, and I'm quite sure it'll be two tough games. And again, it's fitness exercise, isn't it? I mean, we're not that fussy about the score. I mean, we just want to see how good the players are against this opposition, and looking forward to the League Cup campaign.
And George, in terms of Stranraer FC Live, we had challenges at Hull last season. Do you think we'll get Brian Martin climbing up the scaffolding this year? I have to say, I didn't last year, so
If we do, we need to get a camera on it. I think we should be all right this year because I've sorted out wireless microphones, so we shouldn't need to get you up in the country at all. You can have a vantage.
Oh, thank God!
Elsewhere.
Well
so
done.
The things we do. So what you're saying is Brian Martin can sit in a bar across the road and commentate from there. Is that what's going to happen?
I think it's about like 120 feet or something the range, so we can test it.
See how far it goes. George moving the camera away to cut us off. George, you did have additional cameramen on Saturday. Tell us a little bit about your plans for that this season, for the highlights packages.
Yeah, so as I said last week, we've got 2 additional cameramen lined up. Obviously, neither one of them will make every game, but I think between them we've got 2 fantastic guys with the right equipment, the right skills. James, I think, came along on Saturday and did a fantastic job. As you guys will know, I'm quite particular about the way things are done sometimes, and I didn't really have anything to say to him at the end of the 90 other than well done. And we're looking at the kind of technical stuff and matching what each of our cameras does and that kind of thing. But other than that, I think he's come in and done a fantastic job, and glad to have him. And I think it really kind of brings a new immersive angle to the highlights, and basically exactly what I was looking for. So pleased as punch, as you can tell.
And again, I had a look at the highlights, George, as much as else to check my offside call, which I probably was wrong, to be fair. But I know it was, again, over 2,000 viewers. So the highlights are regularly hitting 4 figures, even when we have a disappointing result.
Yeah, and I think for a game like that to have quite a lot of viewers is great, because there wasn't an awful lot going on apart from puns about 76 trombones and what was it, the Martian listed post, and so I think people are just coming for that rather than the football now.
Yeah. The Seagulls. Let me take the Seagulls back into action. Brian, it's a funny one, this podcast, because effectively, we're really enthusiastic. Next week we've got two. I'm thoroughly looking forward to going to Irvine and Hurlford, because again, you're getting to see new guys coming in, getting to get more familiar with them. But I guess we're at this stage of the season where it's just all still a bit unknown, which is why that there's not much to talk about, but there's not an awful lot you can definitively pin down about what's happening.
Absolutely, Laurence. I must admit, I'm looking forward to seeing James Dolan back. Really looking forward to seeing him. And Tiff was on about Danny McManus. He says he's something special. So again, looking for these are two guys we never seen on Saturday. I mean, I said last week I would play Aaron Quigg in front of the back four all day long. He done that with Cap McKnight, and I think along with I forget the boy. What did he come? He was sitting alongside Jordan Stewart.
Yeah,
he played alongside him. So I think it looked like McKnight was heavily strapped. I don't think we'll see him. He looks to be carrying an injury. So I'm hoping Tiff will bring Quigg into the middle of the park, and I'm hoping he plays him alongside Stewart this weekend. We'll see what we've got there. But I'm just looking forward to seeing the team again and see if what the fitness levels are like.
George, I'm not the person for deciding on formations or lineups, but you've got to assume that the manager's going to start with a different lineup in each of the friendlies just to see how his players fit in with each other.
Yeah, and I think he'll want to have a look at Evan Dunn and see how he does. Obviously, he's a left-sided centre back, so maybe him and Scott Ruff could be in there. And like you say, there's still a few to come back. A few that we're keen to see, and hopefully we'll be seeing them in the next couple of weeks. And
I'm guessing, George, that at one of these games we're going to see Ewan Henderson get his shot between the sticks. I wasn't hugely shocked that he didn't appear on Saturday, because, as I said earlier, I think Chris Aiken probably knows what to expect from the lad. But I'm sure at one of these friendlies he'll be the starting number one.
And it might be that, but for Evan Meadow or Hurlford, that's when he gets his chance. It's a level of opposition he's used to, and we can see what he can do.
Brian, anything else that you're looking forward to with the season ahead?
No, I'm looking forward to the first game against Ross County. That's the first competitive game, but I'll take in these next two friendlies and three friendlies in a week. So I'll just take them in, and a lot of people online are dissing the fact that Stranraer are signing players, from the west of Scotland. But I think we could be in for a bit of a shock. I think we're going to be much stronger than what people think. And I said it on Saturday, we look much more physical this season, Laurence. I think Tiff has looked at that, a wee bit more experience, and I'm really looking forward to it. I'll not change my mind for last week. I still think we're one of the top defences in League Two.
And I think, George, it is physical. We need to be more physical, but I think we also need to be more streetwise. And I think I can maybe see that coming this season.
Yeah, I would also say, since we've come down to League Two, maybe other than the first season, we've maybe not had that physicality that League Two has always been, known for. So yeah, hopefully that's what we're going to see.
Brian, I was having a wee Scottish football chat on Sunday afternoon. Met Greg Shaw. You'll remember the name, ex-Queen of the South, ex-Ayr, ex-Falkirk. Bizarrely, I was at a friend's birthday party. It was one of these big round numbers, and bumped into Greg, and I was recalling the last time I bumped into him was at the same person's birthday party 10 years ago. So we were able to go for the same old ground about Southwest derbies. Another friend from Edinburgh was saying, was that the big thing down there? And Greg was like, absolutely. He says, we didn't want to lose to Stranraer. They didn't want to lose to us. Also, just comparing notes on all things D and G. So it's pleased to hear that like us, he's come across the phenomenon that is Gordon Hislop, and he was asking what Gordon was up to. So I think at some point later on this season, Greg's going to come and see Stranraer either at home or at Annan or somewhere with a bit of local interest in it. So it's just always nice to, even I'd try to take your thunder away for a change, because you're the one that's always bumped into footballers and ex-footballers all over the place at Costa.
Now, you always wonder, Laurence, if the players take the game against Queen of the South as serious as what the supporters. They almost look at the map and say, how is this a derby? I know it's in South West Scotland, but how can it be 76 mile away and it's a derby? You often wonder, do players think it the same as what the supporters do?
I think Greg definitely did, because he's local. He's got the tie-up with Dumfries. And the one I always remember was there was a derby match at Palmerston. Must have been the 90s or the noughties, when George Rowe punched the ball into the net for Queen's winner. And I remember being in the tunnel afterwards and saying, "Did you touch the ball at all?" Who, me? Absolutely not. And then I met George a few years later. He was reporting on football for The Sun, and him and I having a chat. He said, of course I did, but I was never going to admit that to you for the newspapers at full time. But again, it was great reminiscence with Geordie Rowe about the Southwest Derby. It's just, George, for yourselves, you're probably one of the generation at the moment that kind of robbed of that phenomenon over the last few seasons.
I have a bit, yeah. It was always there when I was going to watch Stranraer, which is, I've kind of missed out on all of that needle and all the other fun that comes from a derby, but hopefully get a bit of that in a couple of weeks' time.
I was going to say that's not a bad point to round up on, that that's something to get the juices flowing, albeit that's probably still about 4 or 5 weeks away, Queen of the South at home, and there's a lot more football to be played before then. So we'll have a lot more to talk about next week following another 2 friendlies. Just to repeat, Irvine Meadow away on Saturday, 3 o'clock. Halford away next Tuesday night. I think it's 7:30. It's either 7:30 or 7:45. Please check before you set off. But certainly a couple of away games to look forward to before we're back with you. And thanks for watching.